Hey, Bible nerds, this is Dr. Manny Arango. Welcome to the Bible Department podcast, powered by Arma. We are walking through the entire Bible in a year. You can go to the description or thebibledepartment.com to download a reading plan and join the journey. To all my fellow pastors, I've got a question for you. Does your city know that your church exists? Listen, I get it. You're preaching, you're leading, you're discipling, you're doing ministry. We are in the same boat. And let's be honest, social media and marketing, not your strong suit, not mine either. And that's probably the last thing on your mind. And that's why we chose to partner with Church Candy Marketing for our church plant, The Garden. We out here, y'all. They help churches get more actual guests walking through the doors on Sunday without you or I having to stress over ads or algorithms or trying to crack the social media code. Right now, Church Candy is helping nearly 400 churches reach their communities with simple invite ads, and it works. It's super effective. I can tell you from firsthand experience. So if you're tired of being your city's best kept secret, how about you do this? Go to churchcandy.com/Manny and book a free consultation, book a discovery call. Their team will break it all down and show you how to start seeing new faces at your church this Sunday. I'm in the trenches with you, trying to grow the church. And how about we just start a whole campaign? No more empty churches. So let's partner with Church Candy and get our churches full for the glory of Jesus. Let's go. We only got 2 days left in the book of Revelation, which means we only got 2 days left in the entire New Testament. All right. So if you have not done today's reading, if you have not read Revelation chapter 17, 18, 19, and 20, then go ahead, pause this video, pause this audio, go do the reading. For everyone who's done the reading, if you've read Revelation chapter 17 through 20, good work. We're going to get into some context clues. I'm always going to give you a nerdy nugget. I'm going to give you a timeless truth. By this point, if you've been rocking with us for 80 days, you know how this works. And if you're on a streak, I am proud of you. So let's go. Revelation chapter 17. The big character here is going to be the great prostitute, the great whore of Babylon. Okay. Now, some of you may think what does Babylon have to do with anything? It wasn't Babylon. Wasn't the Babylonian Empire a part of the Old Testament? And you would be right. Absolutely. But John, remember, apocalyptic literature is supposed to give hope to people who are in the midst of suffering. So John is going to resurrect these images of Babylon because Rome is a new Babylon. Now, I want you to remember, in the Old Testament, when God's people were in exile in Babylon, they were called to remain faithful. Okay, if you remember people like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. If you remember, they were in exile in Babylon, and although they were in Babylon, they were not called to be of Babylon, okay? Although they were in exile, they were not supposed to lose hope and worship the beast, okay? Or worship the graven image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up for himself. In the same way that God's people were faithful in Babylon in the Old Testament, John is using this image of Babylon to encourage modern day believers to emulate that exact same faithfulness of God's people that have gone before them. So this image of Babylon is resurfacing. It's getting resurrected. Why? To give hope, to encourage. What John is saying, hey, guys, this is not the first time that the people of God have been under persecution. It's not the first time the people of God have suffered. It's not the first time the people of God have been in exile. We know how to conduct ourselves when we are in an empire that is hostile to our faith and hostile towards our God. Second reason that Babylon gets used as an image is to call God's people to faithfulness first. And then second is to say, hey, there's always going to be a Babylon. There's always going to be an empire. Okay. Babylon wasn't the first empire, not the last. Okay. Assyria, not the first empire, not the last. Persia, not the first empire, not the last. The Greeks, okay. Alexander the Great in the Greek army that, took over the known world, not the first empire, not the last. The Roman Empire that's persecuting these Christians here in the book of Revelation, not the first empire, not the last. And so this imagery of Babylon is used for those two reasons. Okay, so that's our context. That yes, Babylon is an Old Testament image, an Old Testament symbol, but and John's audience is not living in Babylon, but they need to see. They need to see that this beast keeps taking on new iterations, that whether they are dealing with version 1.0, 3.0, 8.0, or 9.0 of empire, whether they're dealing with Assyria or Egypt or Babylon or Rome or the British Empire or the American Empire, doesn't matter what version of the empire or what iteration of the empire or which generation of the empire they're dealing with. Our job is to do the same thing, which is to be in the empire, but not of the empire. We're going to see this kind of come to a climax with some pretty I would say rated R language. Okay. So brace yourself. I remember being in my Revelation class in undergrad. It was actually my senior seminar, and it was with Dr. David Mathewson. He was brilliant. He gave us a bunch of apocalyptic literature for the first half of the semester, and we were not allowed to read the book of Revelation, which is apocalyptic literature, until we had gotten familiar with the genre first. A lot of the mistakes that people make is that Revelation is their first time reading apocalyptic literature. So their introduction into this genre is through the book of Revelation. And Dr. Mathewson wanted to make sure that we became experts at the genre first and then started to interpret the book of Revelation. I remember in class one day, he points out Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. Okay, Revelation 18, verse 4. It says this, "Come out of her, my people." And I remember him saying, hey, this is hypersexual language. Because remember, John is talking about Babylon the whore, Babylon the harlot, Babylon the prostitute. And God's words to his church is to say, hey, come out of her. I remember Dr. Mathewson saying, in the same way that it is nearly impossible, very, very difficult for a man who's engaging in sexual intercourse with a woman to stop having intercourse, to come out of that woman before climaxing, that is how hard it is for the church to get out of bed with the empire once the church has become intertwined with empire. Now, there are a lot of Christians. I'm not saying this is my stance. There are just a lot of Christians who would be who would read these verses about come out of her. And I mean, their level of seriousness around a separation between church and empire would be really uncomfortable with an American flag inside of a sanctuary. They would be really uncomfortable with that. They would feel like, man, we're engaging with the civic religion. Okay, that there is a sacred religion, right, like Christianity, and then there's civic religion, so secular religion, and secular religion is the worship of the empire, and there's patriotism that borders on nationalism and xenophobia that honestly is yeah, this is a form of worship, right? This is a god. This is idolatry. And there are Christians who would be uncomfortable with maybe the way that some churches honor veterans, on Sundays. And then, you know what? There's the other extreme as well. There are Christians who would be disrespected by a church not honoring veterans. I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way to handle this. What I am saying is that Revelation is definitely asking the church and Christians to at least be mindful that when we engage as the church, when we engage with the empire, that needs to be intentional and mindful, and that we should be really cautious to get in bed with the empire. This will kind of inform my timeless truth later. But come out of her. There's these two marks of empire. The first one is military conquest. That there's this military machine, that the empire produces a lot of the economic focus okay, is poured into a lot of the economic resources of an empire goes into its military. So when you think about the Babylonian Empire or the Roman Empire or the Greek Empire, man, it's the strongest army in the world. And so if we were just, asking the question, okay, is American Empire, okay, when it comes to military, check. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, our military spending is astronomically more than like every other country, okay, on the planet. Again, not saying that's right, not saying that's wrong, just saying we should be mindful. The second mark of empire is always going to be economics. Okay, so military, and then I would say like a hoarding of wealth. So I want you to read Revelation chapter 8, verse 3. Okay, the kings of the earth committed adultery with her. This is the whore. This is the whore of Babylon. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. So you're going to have military and merchants are going to be the two mainstays of empire, military and merchants. And I think we all have to just ask ourselves, man, have our churches become wealthy or powerful or privileged because of spiritual fervor or because of unfair economic advantage? Like, I just think that's a question that we have to ask. Now, I'm going to be very clear, like I don't think I would never say that like Christians should be poor or like there's any virtue in poverty. I would say that actually my goal is to always hold truth in tension and to say, hey, like we should be mindful and we should weigh. And I never want to be doing something or thinking in a way just because that was the way I was programmed to think or behave. I want to be making cognizant decisions, conscious decisions, no matter where I fall on an issue. I want to make sure that I went through a thoughtful process to get to that position. So that's what I'll say about that. We're going to get a blending of images that are going to describe Babylon, and we're going to get these mainly from the Old Testament. Okay, so if you think about Revelation is actually a blending of three genres in the Bible. We get these 7 letters to the 7 churches, so that we got letter writing. Revelation is going to be a culmination of prophecy, and so we'll see that in a second. But prophecy is a second genre, and then it's apocalyptic literature. So it's this blending of 3 different genres of scripture. Here's where John is going to draw a lot of his imagery from as he describes the fall of Babylon. Isaiah chapter 13, Isaiah chapter 23, Isaiah chapter 34, Isaiah chapter 47, Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, and Ezekiel chapter 26 to 27. So Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel are going to be huge. Okay, and John is going to develop a lot of themes from those books and bring those themes to their culmination in the book of Revelation. All right, now, like once we get into chapter 19, we're going to get these 3 scenes. And the first scene is Armageddon. Let me actually go back just a little bit. Revelation chapter 18, verse 11 says, the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over the great prostitute, over the great whore, Babylon, because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble. Cargoes of cinnamon, spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. So, I mean, we're talking the full gamut. Almost in every empire across history, slavery has been a thing, like an issue. So remember, military and merchants, okay? Bible Department family, my brand new book, Crushing Chaos, is out. And the trailer is fire. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can watch it for yourself right now. Yeah. What if I told you dragons were real? For the original audience of Genesis, dragons were a common symbol that represented chaos. Dragons were normal in the ancient world, and so were the deities that conquered them. The Babylonian god named Marduk conquered the dragon named Tiamat. The Egyptian sun god named Ra had to conquer a dragon called Apep. And the Canaanite god that many of us know from the Old Testament named Baal had to conquer a 7-headed dragon named Lotan. So when the original audience of Genesis heard about a beast tempting Adam and Eve in the garden, they wouldn't have pictured a slithering snake. Oh no. They would have pictured a ferocious chaos dragon. The original audience would only have one question: who's going to conquer this dragon? Yahweh will not conquer this dragon. Yahweh is not like any of the other gods. He is not like Marduk. He is not like Ra or Baal. He has no rival. He has no equal. The dragon is not his adversary to conquer, but Adam and Eve's adversary to conquer. By partnering with chaos, they became the beasts they were called to conquer. Who will conquer the dragon? Jesus crushed the head of the dragon who tempted Adam and Eve, but the monster in the mirror still lives. And I want to invite you to tame the beast within and to partner with God in subduing and ordering the cosmos around you. The only question left is this: how do we crush the chaos that we've become? Let me move into this nerdy nugget. Okay, there's 3 scenes when we get to Revelation chapter 19 and 20. The first scene is in Revelation chapter 19, verses 11 to 21. This is Armageddon. Then the second scene is Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 7. And this is the 1,000-year reign, where Jesus is reigning with those that have been martyred. And then Revelation chapter 20, verse 8 to 15 would be like the final judgment. So we get these 3 scenes. Now the question is, are these 3 scenes sequential, or are these 3 scenes linear in terms of time and how we understand them happening? Are they chronological? And there are 3 major ways to kind of see these 3 scenes. One is called pre-millennialist, okay, which is going to see the 1,000-year reign happening before the second coming. So there's a 1,000-year reign and then the second coming. Then there's going to be post-millennialism, which is going to see the second coming of Christ, then followed by a 1,000-year reign. And then there's a millennial, which does not believe that there's a literal 1,000-year reign. And so in that view, you would kind of see that Armageddon moment where Satan and the beast are held captive, as like what happens on the cross, that's what is accomplished in the crucifixion. And we are currently living in our 1,000-year reign, that's simply the church age. And then the final judgment is the second coming of Christ. Now, there's all kinds of different ways to interpret these 3 scenes, and entire denominations have been created based on how we interpret these 3 scenes. It's not my place to tell you how to interpret these 3 scenes, whether or not to be premillennialist or postmillennialist or amillennialist. My place is to simply say, here's what all Christians agree on: that Jesus will be victorious, that Satan and the beast and evil and suffering and warfare and the great whore of Babylon and empire and slavery and military and all that will cease to exist, that all that will get thrown into the lake of fire, that there won't be martyrs anymore, that there won't be suffering anymore, that we will walk into a new heaven and a new earth, and Jesus will be victorious. Whether or not there's a literal 1,000-year reign, we'll find out. We'll all find out whether or not the church is going to get raptured up so that Jesus can reign on earth with the Jewish nation, with the Jewish people. We'll find out. All right. I've got opinions on whether or not that's what Revelation is trying to break down for us. But at the end of the day, here's what I do know: that Satan is defeated, that his defeat is already, but not yet. that the kingdom is already but not yet, and that there is a final destruction that we are awaiting for our enemy known as Satan. And there's a final culmination or bringing of the kingdom that we're all in anticipation for. And with that anticipation, we remain faithful because we know how this is going to end. We don't partner with the empire. We remain faithful even under the threat of persecution. And that is the thrust. Remember, it can't mean for us what it did not mean for them. So we have to figure out, what did it mean to John's original audience? And if apocalyptic literature is designed to give hope to people who are in the middle of suffering, then letting people know that, hey, you want to make sure you're on the right side of history. And guess where history is leading? It's leading to Jesus being victorious over evil. Do not join with the empire. I'd rather let the empire kill me than join in with the empire and go against God, because at the end of the day, I'm not just living for this life. I'm actually living for the next life. Okay, that brings us to our timeless truth, and that is that every Christian must decide exactly how they are going to engage with empire. It's funny because I'm super proud to be an American. I'm a son of an immigrant. So sometimes I think, children of immigrants are even like extra proud to be Americans, like proud that our parents sacrificed everything and moved here, like to achieve the American dream. Like that is amazing. My dad moved to this country and learned English, had multiple jobs. Like, I know what it took for me to have a passport. In the same way that I'm appreciative of being an American, I also have to appreciate the sacrifice of Jesus and martyrs and Christians that have afforded me the ability to be a dual citizen, that I'm not just a citizen of America, but I'm also a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. And man, if there's something that John is trying to get every single Christian to realize, his original audience and us, is to be in the world, but not of it. It's awesome that I'm proud to be an American, but I can't see being an American as more important than being a part of of the new heaven and the new earth, of God's kingdom. And so with dual citizenship, we approach the world. My outlook or my worldview is not simply shaped by my Americanness, but it's also shaped by my kingdomness. And if there's ever one that's more important than the other, my status as a citizen in the kingdom is the most important thing about me. All right, it's my timeless truth for the day. I gave you a context clue. I gave you a bunch of context clues. I gave you a nerdy nugget. It's not my place to tell you where to sit theologically or politically, but it is my job to give options and say, hey, whatever decision you're going to make sure that you make one that is intentional. So tomorrow is day 81. And if you're on a streak, don't break it. For those of you who have been tracking with us every day, I'm proud of you. I'll see you right here as we close out the book of Revelation and close out the entire New Testament. Family, I'll see you right here tomorrow for day 81. Thanks so much for joining us on the Bible Department podcast. If this episode was helpful, how about you leave a comment, share with a friend, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. To learn more about the show, head to thebibledepartment.com. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.